Hi and welcome. I think I'm live. Yes, looks like everything is running okay. Welcome. I'm Zoe. I've been working with women as a psychologist for over 10 years around issues of confidence, assertiveness, and empowerment. If you're here, please leave a comment, introduce yourself. I'm so glad you'll be joining me today in this Elevate Your Leadership Communication Live in our Boost Your Business Bootcamp. If you're watching the replay, thank you for joining us as well. I especially want to thank Livy for bringing us all together, a number of women with their own businesses, looking to work together and collaborate and build up our skills wherever we can. I've also been a business owner for about 5 years or more, and I've personally had to learn new ways of communicating with clients, staff, colleagues, family, friends. I've been too passive, too aggressive, and just right. In that time, I've learned that the best way to communicate with others involves knowing them as well as yourself, and always keeping communication clear and simple. With your words, you can communicate that you have a boundary, a need, or a limit that is well within reason and more than deserved. However, if you don't speak up, no one will ever know. This might be one of my favorite topics to discuss, the idea of mind reading, and that we tend to expect people or hope people will know what we need without us telling them. And that is always a recipe for disappointment, especially in business. The clearer you are in business, the happier you and your employees are going to be. So this course itself was born from many years of encouraging and leading women to value their needs over their fears of confrontation, because that's what holds us back, right? Our fears of confrontation. As one of the starting points, I want to talk specifically about assertive communication. So assertive communication gets a bad rap sometimes. Assertiveness is often confused with aggressiveness or even just confrontation. But really, assertive communication is a style of speaking where a person stands up for their needs, wants, and limits while not overlooking the needs of others around them. It's neither passive nor aggressive, but clear, specific, and strong. It does not overshadow anyone else's rights or needs or values. Today we're going to work on improving your leadership communication skills through understanding different types of communication, setting reasonable goals for yourself, and trying to shift your mindset so that you can focus on what you can gain from assertive and clear communication rather than what could go wrong, which is our more usual way when we're worried about being assertive. So to start, there are 3 different types of communication: passive, assertive, and aggressive. There's also passive-aggressive, but that's not really here nor there for our particular purpose today. So passive communicators not only fail to assert themselves in most situations, but they also tend to feel taken advantage of, stuck in roles that reinforce a sense of victimhood, and lack a sense of agency to make changes in their lives. So if you're passive, you might know you are because you really feel stuck and you don't know how to get out of it. Aggressive communication is closer to bullying, where someone will express their needs in a way that doesn't leave room for compromise, collaboration, or anyone else's needs and opinions. Aggressive communicators tend to criticize, blame, and try to control others around them. They interrupt frequently, and they really externalize issues. Passive communicators probably take it all on themselves, more than aggressive communicators, which tend to put it all on others. Assertive communicators are able to express feelings and needs respectfully and clearly while still being able to listen without interrupting others. They tend to feel connected with others and themselves, and these people understand their own needs and have empathy for the needs of others around them, so they're a lot more collaborative. They address issues as they arise, minimizing feelings of resentfulness and anger, and make room for others to do the same. So there's room for a conversation. Sorry, just hold on one second, just making sure, getting a comment about the live, and all right, seems like we're good to go. So most of us are raised to be passive in our communication as children. So your communication style didn't start with your job or with you starting your business. You've been socialized and learned how to communicate from a very young age. Especially as girls, we're constantly expected to be passive in school, at work, with friends, with partners. We're taught to respect adults, listen to adults, do what they ask of us without any real sense of autonomy as a young child. All of this adds up to not learning or having the opportunity to practice the skills necessary to be assertive when it's time. So now as adults, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we've never practiced being assertive, and we still have those old mentalities stuck in our minds of being people pleasers or trying to make everyone around us feel good and comfortable. You may have even tried to be assertive only to be told to be nicer, quieter, not make so much noise, or don't make an issue of it. I'm sure you've all heard that. You've probably seen other assertive women being shot down, dismissed, called dramatic, and any other number of unpleasant words, either to their face or behind their back. So you've definitely seen this in the news and all over social media as women are blamed for their own experiences when they do speak up. All of this reinforces a fear of being assertive and leads to the idea that speaking assertively feels uncomfortable and rude, triggering the feeling that someone will react negatively to you or be upset with you. If you really break down our fears of being assertive communicators, it comes down to worrying that we're going to upset someone and that someone's going to be mad at us. That's the cycle that's really hard to break. So figuring out where you are on the communication style scale, I think, is one of the first steps to understanding what you want to change and seeing what you need to tweak. It's easy to get a sense with just a few questions what your communication style really is. That if you're unable to say no, can't be direct, and don't feel comfortable asking questions, you're most likely a passive communicator. When thinking about your own communication style, these are a few questions to ask yourself. Are your sentences filled with gaps such as ums and maybes? Do you feel able to say no to things? Are you able to ask questions, or do you shy away from asking questions even if people are asking you to ask them questions? Are you still hesitant because you might not think they really want to hear from you, or you're worried of feeling silly or looking stupid? Are you able to defend yourself when you're being blamed for something that wasn't your fault? If you answered no to most of these questions, you're probably a passive communicator. And that's something that creates a lot of confusion when you're trying to run a business. To really change this learned behavior, you have to break those associations from the past and learn new ways of communicating with your peers, employers, and family. This also means you'll have to learn to be uncomfortable sometimes when asserting yourself. That's okay, it's completely normal. If you've been speaking passively for most of your life, anything even a little bit assertive is going to feel aggressive, but that doesn't mean it is. That's just the opposite side of passive. Seems like it's aggressive. But stating a need, asking for help, setting a limit is not aggressive. It's just being clear and assertive. I want you to keep coming back to this as a reference when you're thinking about your own communication. So we all have mental barriers to speaking up for ourselves. That's what we're talking about, right? In fact, most of us focus on what could go wrong if we speak up, to the point that we miss out on what we can gain from communicating more assertively. That next step to really start the process of changing how you communicate is to really identify what you can gain by improving your communication and expressing yourself clearly, calmly, and assertively. This is where the real mindset shift happens. By realizing passive communication is actually preventing you from achieving your goals and moving forward, you can start to dismantle this pattern. It's important to ask yourself if your current behavior and way of interacting is helping you achieve your goals or making you feel good about yourself. Does it? How do you feel when you don't speak up? Many of us are stuck in these outdated ideas around assertiveness and confrontation, but in reality, a reasonable amount of confrontation is healthy in a balanced life and actually necessary to keep it balanced. But you're here, so you're already taking that first step, which is curiosity and accountability. As part of the mindset shift, I usually recommend identifying or making a list of how clear communication can help you and your business. For example, what's the best case scenario if your conversation goes well? Some examples might be clear expectations for you and your team, better working relationships, smoother operations, and less anxiety and stress overall, since no one has to mind read or guess what's expected of them. Your roles are clearly defined. You're there to help your team understand what you need, and you're also there to understand that a lot of us are service providers, and some of our clients aren't always super clear about what they're looking for. So asking them a number of questions and being assertive in what we can offer can also help clarify the job relationship and the working relationship. So clear communication will reduce job-related stress, improve your work-life balance, your work relationships, and many other aspects of your professional and personal lives. So if you listen to Lori's talk about productivity hacks, you heard her say not to tackle the biggest project on your to-do list. Shout out to Lori. But to start small. I always say the same about tackling your biggest fears with regards to assertive communication. Do not go after your biggest fear first. This sets you up for failure, and you'll likely reinforce and continue to avoid conversations, confrontations, asking questions, and it's a self-reinforcing cycle. Instead, I want you to think of a small thing you'd like to address with someone that you're already comfortable with, if that's an option for you. You can even start with a simple request instead of an actual issue and work your way up. Changing your communication pattern and how you think of communication is a long process. You can change it right away, but how you feel about it, it's going to bring up feelings of anxiety, and it's going to bring up those old style feelings of worrying you're going to get scolded by a parent or an adult. It can even make you feel like a little kid again. So for example, if you tend to avoid all confrontations, you can start with asking for someone to change their schedule or someone to work another hour here, or you can even start in your personal life by asking a partner to do a chore that you would like them to do. You want to start small and somewhere that's very low risk. Because again, if you go after the biggest fish first and you fail, you're just going to convince yourself that this wasn't helpful and you can't do it. Another way to really help start the process of change is implementing daily habits. And that's something you can do to start improving communication in very small ways. It'll also help you create new automatic responses that can replace your older, more passive, interactive patterns. So like we always say, practice makes perfect. This is part of that process. So some daily habits you can start to incorporate right away before you even address anyone else is saying no more often. You may have a tendency to say yes even when you're overwhelmed. This gives you the option to say, no, I just can't make that work right now. Or this maybe next week, or let me look, that kind of thing. There's many ways to say no, and it matters what type of way you can say no that you're comfortable with. So especially if you have the need to please those around you, this can be hard. But the only way to really improve your communication is to practice letting go of what other people want. You can use the word because to explain your decision to say no, and that helps you and them understand and respect your decision. For example, hey Lori, can you come over and do this task for me? Lori could say no because I'm moving, or no because I have a lot going on, and leave it there. Sometimes it's tempting to add a qualifier at the end, maybe next week, maybe next time, but it's also okay to just say no. You can practice active listening. So you can be working with someone and summarize what someone says back to them, and that makes sure you hear them, understand them, and actually gives you time to process it more fully. The next step is one of the more important things. I want you to practice taking time to respond. Okay, see that pause there? I know in video you're not supposed to pause that much, but I want you to practice not responding immediately. If you don't know what to say, it's always a good idea to take some time to think about your response. And you can always use the phrase, I need to think about that and get back to you. That is usually an appropriate response, especially if you're the boss. Or I want to look into that and get back to you. You don't always have to say yes right away, and you don't always have to have the answer. An example in work, I think this is a very common thing I hear. Instead of just responding to every email from a team member or a contractor or an employee that's over emailing you with 1,000,001 little questions, wait a few hours and respond to everything all at once. It's low risk and low confrontation. And I mean, this means if it's not an emergency, but especially if it's not an emergency, it can wait. A lot of people have anxiety when communicating with their bosses and communicating with other colleagues, and they can't contain their questions. So you want to help them learn to ask questions all at once, but you also need to model that for them. You need to start modeling, taking time to respond, and not just being on email all day. So I want to share, remind everyone that everyone's baseline comfort levels are different. You probably have some areas you're already comfortable being assertive in. In my private work, I like to really help people translate that. So if you're assertive with friends, you already have skills that we can translate to other areas. So you probably have that somewhere. It'd be great to look at that for yourself. And it's important to find your baseline in each area and increase your level of challenge strategically, and not, again, jump to the biggest, most difficult challenge. Just like you wouldn't just go and run a marathon without training. You'd start, if you haven't run in your whole life, you'd start by running around the block. This is similar, but again, I do believe most people are assertive somewhere in their life, and so building on the strengths that are already existing in you is one of the best ways I've seen that this works with people, especially if they're trying to be more assertive just in business or with friends or with family. There's areas you're already more comfortable being assertive and direct, okay? So especially if you're new to communicating assertively, practice is going to be your new best friend. You can run through what you want to say with a friend or even by yourself, but think it through and practice what you want to say. If it sounds or feels passive to you, it probably is. Trust that judgment. There's almost always words you can remove to make your message clearer and simpler, especially any qualifiers like do you think, or maybe, or we might want to consider, or things like that. Those are, I call those fluff qualifiers. Those weaken your message and they actually lose someone's attention. The more clear you are and the concise, it's not rude, it's just concise, the more you'll be able to keep someone's attention. When it takes too long to get to your point, especially in this generation, you lose people's attention and interest. The more comfortable you get, the more often you practice, you can begin expanding your comfort levels by taking more progressive steps as you go. So again, start small. A reminder to try to say no more often. Keep track of how many times you might say sorry every day. And that can also help you see what kind of communicator you are and how you might want to change. So keeping it short and sweet, which is my motto. Thank you for attending my Elevate Your Leadership Communication and joining the Boost Your Business Bootcamp. It's been an honor to be included among so many women who are entrepreneurs and working so hard to overcome their own barriers, build themselves up, taking chances. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or send me a direct message. I'm also offering a free guide to transform your leadership style. If you leave a comment to get the guide, I'll be sure to send it your way. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.